Good afternoon. So I just put a story up giving 5 reasons why people should consider walking more. Um, but people who know me, I like to talk. You only get a minute to do a story, so I'm not really putting all the detail I'd like to put in. So I just wanted to elaborate on what I said above. If you want a quicker version, look at the story. If you want a bit more of a detailed explanation, then listen to this. Okay, so I went away at the weekend with some friends. We went down to the New Forest, had a great time. But a lot of our as we've got older, a lot of our trip is based around going on walks. You're walking from A to B, going to nice pubs. And just generally seeing as much as you can, covering as much of the area as you can on foot. So I wouldn't say they're particularly taxing walks. They're quite, most of it was fairly level. It was great scenery, but it's fairly level. A few kind of inclines and declines and whatnot. But I wouldn't say it was particularly taxing for anyone who wasn't, shall we say, really fit. But one of my friends, you wouldn't mind me saying this, if he has had Facebook, which I don't think he has, he struggled. So we did maybe 30,000 steps one day over 5-6 hours, low intensity walking. And then we did a similar on the second day. But after the first day, he was kind of already in bits, really. He had, I don't just mean from the perspective of his feet were sore, but his hips, his hip flexors were packing up, calves were sore, knees were sore. And it kind of made me think about I wonder if that was the normal for people, because I kind of expect, or I think that most people should be able to build up to kind of that level of activity. And certainly the older we get, the more important it is to be able to do that. Because I think when we're younger and we're at school, we're running around more, playing football or whatever sports it is, but we tend to have that kind of foundation just through play and through daily activity. But as we get older, we get more sedentary, and with a lot of people's jobs, they are desk bound. As you know, a lot of people now work at home, or even when they're in the office, they are sitting at their desk, or you were sitting at your desk for a number of hours each day. And technically, you're sedentary, regardless of whether you do training before and after work. That being that sort of period of time when you're fairly stationary and your muscles aren't moving, that kind of classes you as sedentary. So I said to my pal, I said, how much do you actually walk a day? And he said, probably, he doesn't count it, but he said probably no more than 1,000 steps a day, which is literally him just going up and down stairs. He's certainly not getting out in the daytime, and he does play badminton and he swims multiple times a week. So obviously that isn't enough. That wasn't enough to keep him, ready for what we were doing. So I looked into walking and sort of had a thought about trying to give people 5 reasons why they should walk more. So ask yourself that genuinely. Do you think you walk enough? Do you think if you went somewhere that entailed you walking around for 5 hours that you would feel absolutely fine at the end of the day, such that you could repeat it the next day and the day after? Okay, so I think that's a good goal for people to kind of get to. So you can either think of it in terms of 1,000 steps, or you can think of it as time on your feet. Now, for me personally, if I walk for an hour, without a dog, I'm probably going to get 6,000 steps in. With a dog, it can be much less, depending on how much you start him. So already, if you think about it, if I'm going for 10,000 steps a day, I need to be walking for at least an hour and a half a day. So I need to have an hour and a half on my feet. And I put that outside of my work. Okay, I'm lucky with my work because I can be on my feet, work in the studio. I can help people put on weights, take weights back, and I'm really lucky in that respect. But a lot of people aren't, because you're stuck behind a computer. Okay, so. So 10,000 is an arbitrary number. Everyone talks about doing 10,000 steps, but it is very arbitrary. It doesn't have any significant meaning on its own. But what the research does show is, if you get to any point, I think it's above 5,000, 6,000, then you start to really reap health benefits from doing that. Now, I've always given myself, say, an 8,000 target. I don't wear a stepper. As you see, I've not got a stepper watch on. But like I say, as long as I can work out roughly how much time I spent walking a dog and other walks, then if I get an hour and 20, then I know I've probably hit my 8,000. So what happens at 8,000 steps? For most people under 60, you're looking at perhaps a 40% reduction in all-cause mortality, right? Which is massive if you think about it. So you take any cause of death, and for those people that are doing 8,000 steps or more daily, there's a reduction across the board. So that's kind of huge. All right. So I think in the video above, I'll give that as maybe the 4th reason. But let's say that's reason number 1. All right. So it reduces all-cause mortality by 40%. And that is huge, especially in this day and age where we're all getting a bit more sedentary. We're getting more inactive. People are tending putting on weight because of our lifestyle, because we've got more processed food available, because basically life is making it more comfortable for us to do less and make poorer choices. So, we're all succumb to that in some way. So that's number one reason. Number two reason, I said it's anti-aging, or I call it mobility. It's the same kind of thing, all right? So by walking more, you actually mobilise your body, you mobilise your hips. You know, if you walk properly, you can activate your glutes. We're using our calves, we're swinging our arms. You know, there's lots of stuff going on there that when we're sitting all day, all these functions get turned off, all these movements get turned off, all right? So this is why when we sit down for a few hours, watch a film or go to the cinema, you get up, and certainly for me, my lower back feels sore because my hips are tight, my hips pull on my lower back. But by walking regularly, we can kind of counteract that. So when you're walking, you get synovial fluid, starts moving, starts going and oiling your joints, so it keeps your joints nice and healthy, reduces the impact on your joints, so it can actually help with arthritic pain as well, believe it or not. It helps the blood circulate, and generally it kind of helps the body move better because the body's designed to move, and you've probably heard the saying, I use it a lot, use it or lose it. Okay? When we stop using things, then our body starts to either plateau, or as we get older, it's actually going to kind of degenerate, if that's the right word. We'll actually find we deteriorate, we lose muscle, we lose the ability to move, and if we do it for long enough, then we'll have a sort of lower quality of life. Okay, so that's anti-aging in that respect. Older people sit there, a lot of older people sit down a lot and watch telly, and you see them when they get up, they're kind of moving really gingerly, aren't they, and they're quite fragile. So there's no reason we should think of that as a norm. You look at other people who are slightly older and kept themselves busy, strength trained, and move around a lot, and they move like completely different people, don't they? We normally think they're 20 years younger, but maybe we should think of them as the norm, and that's what we should kind of aspire to be. Okay, so I'm forgetting the order I gave it in now. So I've done anti-aging, I've done all-cause mortality. I said also it was accessible. So number 3 is accessible. So what does that mean? It basically means that anyone can do it. So I think this is an important point. A lot of people think they want to go and keep fit, so they put on their shoes and they go running. But running actually should be regarded as something like if you was going to play tennis or golf. There's a technique, a huge technique element or component to running. Now think of me, I'm just under 100k. If I go running, I'm putting 100 kilos through my joints and through every leg every time it lands. And if you're going for a long run, you've got thousands of impacts going through your body, going through your joints. And if your form is off or your technique is not quite right, then your body is going to take the brunt of that. And as you can imagine, over time, it can lead to wear and tear on your joints, and it can lead to exposing muscle weaknesses, and that can go up and down the chain. So that's the issue with running, all right? But walking generally has a much lower cost to the body because you don't have that high impact. So you can go walking, you can put on a pair of trainers, and like I say, there's much less cost on the body. We should all be able to do that. We should at least be aiming to do that. Okay, so number 4, I said about recovery. So if you're training hard through whatever mode you're choosing, whether that's strength training in the gym, or it's through a sport, or through its high intensity classes, then walking works fantastically as a recovery tool. So a lot of people, I used to think of this when I was younger, that recovery meant you're doing nothing, but actually doing nothing isn't particularly good for you. So recovery, you should think of strategies like walking, low intensity stuff, being active in the garden, maybe saunas, stretching, that kind of thing. But walking fits perfectly in that, in that kind of mode, or those options as a tool to use after you're a bit beaten up, or you've had a high day. Like in my last video I talked about, high days should be followed by low days, and walking's fantastic at that. Okay, it will get the blood flowing, it will help reduce and clear out lactic acid, and like I said a minute ago, it will oil the joints. So if the joints are sore, it will really kind of help lubricate and kind of restore order to your joints. Okay. And I think number 5, I said, in fact, I could go on about walking. There's lots of things. I only chose 5, but some websites are giving you 17 reasons, 15 reasons. But I said about mental health. So it's fantastic for your mental health. You go out there, you get sun on the skin, if the sun's out, that is. If you've got blue sky, we all know how that makes you feel. It makes you feel fantastic when you've been in a dark place all day. Being at one with nature makes you very present. So if you're having a stressful lifestyle, then getting out and walking is a fantastic antidote to that, because it puts you in the present. And although you don't think at the time, you feel like when you're in the middle of something, you're stressed, you've got to see it through. But actually, if you remove yourself from that environment, you take half an hour away from it, you come back, quite often you're invigorated and you're ready to tackle kind of whatever problem it is head on. I don't think I mentioned within this, but there's a really useful point to put in this as well, that it's a really good treatment or a good way to help manage diabetes or pre-diabetes. So if you if you put yourself in that bracket, or even if you don't, a really good strategy is to walk after you've eaten, because effectively the food you've eaten will kind of elevate your blood sugar levels, and that's your kind of primary source of energy, which if you go and sit down, then you're not going to do anything with that, and it'll ultimately just get stored in the body somehow. If you go out and you give it something to do, through exercise, which is walking, then you can help kind of stabilise your blood sugar levels. So that works as a strategy, and there's a lot of research in that if you want to have a look at that. And the last thing I just want to say, so I've covered 5 points there, but the last thing I wanted to say really was, if you're unfit or you're new to walking, it may well be a cardiovascular challenge. You may find that it elevates your heart rate and your breathing just going out for a strong, and that's fine. All right, so in which case that is your cardiovascular activity, in which case it's probably really important you do it in that case, because you need to be doing something that's elevating your heart rate. But as we get better and we get more efficient, then walking, I don't think, really should be seen as a cardiovascular exercise. It's more like a foundational exercise. It's more like something we should be doing. So you have to start off at the right level. So if you're only getting a couple of thousand steps in at the moment, then aim for a little bit more than that, and a little bit more, to over time, you're building up to, like I said, that 6,000, 8,000, 10,000 kind of level. I say most of the benefits happen after 6,000. So that's a good thing to aim for. But once you get to that level, what you should find ultimately is that it's not a cardiovascular challenge. Okay, we shouldn't, in my opinion, be putting it up there with a hard run or a hard bike ride or a hard row. But it should be foundational. It should be something we're all doing. It should be up there with cleaning your teeth. In my opinion, doing strength training, that it just should something we expect to do in our lives. And it's just something we tick off every day without question. Okay, so that's my view on walking. Feel free to leave comments or questions if you've got anything. I'm by no means an expert on walking, but I've done a little bit of research into it. And personally, since having a dog, it's got me walking a lot more. And because of my job as well, I can class myself as I'm probably not sedentary. Yeah, but the dog is an easy way to get your steps in. So I have to go out with my dog, rain or shine. Whereas in the past, perhaps without the dog, I might have chosen not to go out if it was raining. But now I don't have a choice. He's just down there, by the way, having a little snooze. And yeah, that's a freebie, right? So I'm getting my 6,000, 8,000 steps in sometimes just by walking the dog. So those with dogs, use him or her as an excuse to get out and maintain your long-term health, because that's what we should all be thinking about. And my target audience really now, I'm talking about people 35, 40 plus, and these are all strategies we should be using to fight off aging and to kind of keep ourselves young. Anyway, I hope you find it helpful.